Happy Monday, guys. Question of the day. How many wars have we, the American people, lost, but the American government, they seem to have won? I want you to think about that. Plus, British influencer Ollie London, who transitioned to a Korean woman earlier this year, said he is now transitioning back to be a British man after becoming a Christian. All that and more today on Candace Owens. So if you were online over the weekend, you may have seen a lot of people talking about FTX. A lot of people being very upset that FTX, which in case you're not aware, it is a crypto exchange platform, is going bankrupt. And they're not, by the way, just upset that it's going bankrupt, but it also seems a bit scandalous. In fact, it turns out that the CEO may have been taking money from FTX under the guise of helping the war effort in Ukraine, and then laundering that money back to Democrats to the tune of $50 million. So people have been understandably outraged. In fact, one tweet from a friend of ours, Benny Johnson, he wrote this. He wrote, FTX was a money laundering scam from Democrats. $50 million spent on electing Dems this cycle. Will a single Democrat return the blood money given to their campaigns through theft of regular Americans' savings? This should be the biggest scandal in the world right now. And I think Elon Musk replied to that thread and said, no one's going to get in trouble because it's Democrats. And he's right. And Benny Johnson is right. I think for me, I was a little confused as to why anybody would think that this would be the biggest scandal. Why would this be the biggest scandal? Pretending to give money to a war and then actually laundering it back to politicians. I mean, hasn't that been going on forever? Am I the only person that realizes it's been going on forever? In fact, I had somebody mean tweet me, why isn't Candace even talking about this? As if there was some conspiracy of why I haven't been talking. I have been talking about this nonstop since I've had a platform. I keep talking about the fact that your government, our government, is never, ever, ever going to allow there to be a period of peace. Because a period of peace would mean that they can't launder trillions of dollars away from the American taxpayer back to themselves. So people are upset about $50 million. Well, to date, we have given $54 billion, $54 billion of American taxpayer money to support the war effort in Ukraine. Now, why should you be outraged by that? Well, because apparently we're not fighting that war. And yet we've already spent more than we spent the entire time that we were in Afghanistan, and we don't know what that money is going toward. We have no idea. While we have all of these politicians on stage saying, we must win. We must support Zelensky in his efforts. We mustn't talk bad about Zelensky. We have no idea why one day it was BLM flags and the next day they dropped it and everybody put up a Ukraine flag. But you can bet your money, literally, you can bet your money that if the mainstream media is in lockstep on a narrative, it means that you are about to be stolen from. And so I started thinking about that. How many times, just I guess really in my recent memory, not even going back too far, have we all been told that we need to come together to fight something, only to have money taken from us and to not have us win the war that we're allegedly fighting to win, and then they look us in the face and move on to the next one? Here's just one example. What about the war on terrorism? Where are all my 9/11, grew up during 9/11 people like me? We were all told we had to be so scared and terrorism, and we have to fight all of these efforts in the Middle East. We need to, here's my favorite one, ready? Spread democracy. I wish I could have a CIA dictionary every time our CIA tells us that we're spreading democracy. It usually just means that we're bombing poorer countries and we're bombing them into oblivion. We don't really know why we're doing that, but we can bet our money that we're not going to win in those areas because it turns out they don't want our version of quote unquote spreading democracy. So yeah, the war on terrorism, America spent $6.4 trillion on wars in the Middle East and Asia since 2001. I will again ask the question, which one of those wars did we win? Iraq? No. Afghanistan? No, get out of there, quick, hand it back to the Taliban. So what are we doing? Oh, I know what we're doing. We're laundering money back to United States politicians. That's exactly what's happening. And I think it's time for us to go ahead and admit that. And it's worse than that. It's not just laundering money. We're willing to kill American citizens to do that, right? We have military deaths that are taking place every day. In fact, on the war on terrorism, we lost over 7,000 United States service members and over 8,000 contractors. They died post 9/11 in all of those wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and everywhere else. Over 30,177 United States service members and veterans of the post 9/11 wars have also died via suicide. Think about that. And for what? The question is for what? Or better yet, for whom? It's not the only war that our government has come to us and said that we must fight. Of course, early on, it was the war on drugs. Remember, we have to fight the war on drugs. People are drug addicts. So we need to spend money to stop drug addiction. That's been going on since 1971. And in case you want to know how much we've spent, we have spent over $1 trillion enforcing drug policy, according to the research from the University of Pennsylvania. And what has been the result of that? You're looking around, do people seem like they're doing less drugs to you? Are you looking around at the America that we live in? Have you been to Los Angeles? Have you been to San Francisco? People are doing this openly in the streets. In fact, in 2020, 91,799 people died in overdose deaths. So how's that for the war on drugs? Beyond that, 6,000, and this is actually more important, you should know this, when the war began, right, just 6,771 people were dying of overdose deaths. Think about how much bigger that's getting. And of course, we know that's increasing every single year because of the opioid crisis. Yeah, we're fighting drugs, but also our government is in lockstep with the drug manufacturers to get people on drugs that they deem acceptable, right? Everyone nowadays is doing some sort of a drug. They're putting kids on Adderall. They're becoming addicted to Adderall. They're putting kids on opioids and then being, oh my God, we have an opioid epidemic. Maybe we need to launder even more money away from the taxpayer to fight this never-ending war. And it's never ending because we don't want it to end. Just like the war on COVID. Who could forget? I think it's still going on, actually, the war on COVID somehow, which is just somehow via a stimulus package, they got to take $5 trillion away from us, away from our kids and our grandkids, because we're fighting the invisible war on COVID. Stay at home, save lives. You don't go to work. Don't worry. Your government got you, baby. It got you to the tune of $5 trillion. And where is the outrage? Nope. People just get right in line. We just keep jumping from one idiot narrative to the next, really believing that this time our government must really mean it. They're going to rescue us from COVID. No, of course, no. They just one day decide it's over because we've already agreed to giving them trillions of dollars. And so now you can go back outside and you can go to work and you better have no questions because there's no refunds when it comes to the government. You know who knows that really well? Black America. Black America knows that because, of course, the war on poverty. It was all about us. The war on poverty since 1964, same year that we passed the Civil Rights Act. The government said, oh, all these people that are impoverished, we've got to help these people get richer. Look at you, Black America. And so welfare policies went into place, right? Want to know how much we've spent on that war on poverty? Ready? $22 trillion since 1964 on anti-poverty programs which encourage people to remain impoverished. That's what it does. And here's an update. Ready? Black Americans are poorer today than they were when it began. So much for winning the war. But it doesn't matter because the real thing is it's supposed to make us feel good, right? I feel, even though Black Americans are poor, I feel good for saying that we have been fighting the war, even though we have no idea what the hell we are doing in Ukraine or why Zelensky is so clearly acting the part of a person in a war-torn Ukraine. But it makes us feel good. I feel good when I put the little Ukrainian flag in the corner on my profile right next to my pronoun. It makes me feel good. I feel good when I say that we're fighting terrorism, even though we just keep bombing people. into oblivion. We don't really know what's happening to all of that. And so I want you guys to know, I want you to know that you should feel good, even though the FTX maybe wiped away $50 million from people's savings, money that people didn't have because we were just fighting that feel-good war, the invisible enemy of COVID. I want you to know that you should feel good because at least you thought you were giving to some people in Ukraine. And that's really all I have to say about that. All right, so you guys know that inflation is a huge problem right now, so much so that the CEO of JP Morgan just warned that stocks could slide another 20%. That being said, investors are moving their money into alternatives like fine art, because fine art has outpaced even the S&P 500 over the last 26 years by 131%. And now with Masterworks, you can be a fine art investor too. Here's how Masterworks works. Their research team uses proprietary data to determine which artist markets have the most momentum. Then their acquisitions team locates what they believe to be a good piece at a fair price, and they purchase the work. At that point, they file an offering circular with the Securities and Exchange Commission, allowing anyone to invest. They then hold the art for 3 to 10 years. When they sell the painting, you receive your pro rata proceeds after their fees. Even in 2022, Masterworks produced results. In early October, Masterworks had a strategic exit of a 21.5% net return to their investors. 6 out of 7 exits have produced over 20% net returns. Don't sleep on this. Paintings are selling out in minutes, but you can get priority access at masterworks.com/Candace. That's promo code Candace at masterworks.com/Candace. See important disclosures at masterworks.com/CD. Okay, now it's time for some topics du jour. All right, so today's episode is all about feeling good, even though we're not doing good. As long as we feel good, it's all that matters, because the feelings don't care about the facts at all. And of course, we should then talk about President Zelensky, who I have been mocking since the very beginning. I don't know how any person in good conscience can pretend that he is a serious leader. He is so obviously an actor, literally an actor that was funded. He acted the part on a series and a show of being a president. And then somebody got behind him and paid for him, an oligarch paid for him to actually become the president of Ukraine. And now we just get to see him acting all the time on the cover of Vanity Fair, on the cover of Vogue, Grammy speeches, Oscar speeches. For somebody that's in the middle of a war, he sure does have a good stylist. The photos of him when he was in Forbes, and they keep making him wear this ridiculous outfit. It's almost like you're just styling someone in war, the sleeves rolled up. There's actually no reason why President Zelensky is not wearing a suit every day, but the idea is to make us think that he's in the trenches while he's at all of these amazing events everywhere and just kind of doing the rounds in leftist media. So just when you think that you couldn't laugh harder at President Zelensky, he does something else. And this time he is receiving an Oscar award from Sean Penn. I don't even know. Sean Penn just always is in the middle of something that feels like a CIA operation. Every time he pops up, he just seems like, what are you doing here, Sean Penn? Are you CIA trained? Well, he obviously has gone over and decided to give the Ukrainian President Zelensky one of his Oscars, just to borrow, just like until you win the war, here, hold the Oscar. And of course, this makes Zelensky, who's actually an actor, very, very happy. And here is a clip of that moment. And no, I am not joking. Take a listen.
This is for you.
Oh, Sean.
Yes.
No,
Please.
that is yours.
No, I feel terrible outside. It's just a symbolic, silly thing.
Yes, but
if I know this is here with you, then I'll feel better and stronger for the fight.
So great to honor, but until we will.
When you win, bring it back to Malibu.
Great.
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Because I'll feel much better knowing there's a piece of me here.
You have to be.
So touched by this. I'm just so touched. Are you not touched? And look, there he is again in that same styled look, Zelensky wearing a sweatshirt because he's one of us. Can't you feel it? He's just in touch with his people. And now he's receiving an Oscar, so attainable and just so loving. And I can no longer take anybody serious who's taking this war in Ukraine seriously. and not realizing that this is just money laundering that's taking place in front of the American people. That's not to say that there are not actual Ukrainians that are suffering. There are, of course there are. Like there are actual Russians that are suffering, of course. But this entire narrative, if you are still buying that Zelensky is just not some bought and paid for politician who's been doing the part of laundering money for the entire Western Hemisphere, then you're just not paying attention. And I am just keen to see how he could possibly up the ante after this. I don't know how you go from Grammys to Oscars to Vanity Fair to Vogue. I don't see how he could climb higher when it comes to him just hanging out with celebrities. Didn't he also have like U2 perform in Ukraine in the subways? And yeah, I don't know. People are still buying it. Be sure to put your Ukrainian flag in your profile today. All right, guys, moving on. There is an individual, goes by Ollie London. He is, in fact, from the UK, and he transitioned into a Korean woman earlier this year. And now he says that he is transitioning back to become a British man. London is 32 years old, and he was embroiled in a controversy after he identified as transracial. So that, in my opinion, if you can be transgender, I don't see why you couldn't be transracial. It makes perfect sense to me. If we're pretending that there's no such thing as objective reality, why can't Ollie London, who is a white male, say, actually, I'm Korean, that's what I feel like on the inside, and nothing else matters? He did this for about 6 months before he realized that this was a lie and this was wrong. And here is him speaking to Tucker Carlson on Friday night. Take a listen.
As a Korean woman. But 6 months later, he's decided he's had enough. Now he's transitioning back to being a British man. We thought we would ask him what that experience was like. Ollie London joins us tonight. Ollie London, thanks so much for coming on. So why did you decide to become a Korean woman? Who told you that was possible?
So obviously I've had a difficult time with my gender identity struggles. I was never unhappy with how I looked. So I started changing. I started dressing as a Korean woman, and I realized that was a big mistake, and I just want to be a boy. But, you know, is it any wonder people like me and young people want to change their gender when we have the normalization of this in our schools in this country? Children are taught from a young age, from the age of 5 in some cases, that it's okay to change their gender. It's okay to, you know, wear a skirt. It's okay for a boy to use a gender-neutral toilet when it puts girls at risk. This is the new norm, and schools are teaching about toxic masculinity. They're eroding the alpha male. The alpha straight male has been eroded. You know, Tucker, what happened years ago when kids used to go to school, they used to idolize Superman and astronauts. Now kids are being pushed this radical ideology. They're taught to idolize weak men like Harry Styles, weak politicians like Beto O'Rourke. Why is this happening, you know? And is it any wonder people like me fall victim to this, that I had all this surgery, I tried to change because, you know, I kind of fell victim to this mentality. I'm an adult, but, you know, these kids can't make these decisions on their own. They're being pushed this radical agenda, and I'm grateful that I've come out the other side. I'm grateful I found God. But, you know, I want to speak up for these kids that are confused with their gender. A lot of kids have gender dysphoria, and, you know, that wasn't a thing 20 years ago, Tucker. This is what's being taught in the school system.
So here's the thing. Everything that Ollie London is saying is correct. It's music to my ears. It's obviously a lot of the work that we do here at the Daily Wire in trying to expose this nefarious agenda on our children. Don't exactly, if I'm being honest, I don't exactly like Ollie London's character arc. I don't like that it goes from somebody completely unknown, just some British guy, completely unknown, then decides I'm going to be a Korean woman, gets all of this work done, gets tons of attention and sponsorships and followers, becomes an influencer, and then 6 months later completely changes his mind and is now being on Tucker Carlson, right? He's now being featured on Tucker Carlson, which is, you know, the biggest show in the United States. My personal opinion is that what Ollie London is saying is true, but also Ollie London just wants attention. That's my honest opinion. I think that Ollie London, because he was unknown, he fell victim to social media likes and clicks and saw that if you just pretended that you were gender dysphoric and pretended that you wanted to become a woman, that you could get attention, and he got that attention, right? He went through all these procedures. People loved him. He was an influencer, being transracial, got tons of headlines. Then Ollie London realized, you know what, I'm doing this for attention. I don't really want to be this. How about I transition? And that will make another splash into the conservative circles. And that's exactly what he got, attention. And so this goes back to an earlier episode where we talked about your psychological immune system and how people are becoming more and more desperate online to get clicks. And they're willing to do that if it means going under the knife. They're also willing to do that if it means rejecting all the procedures that you got. I do not think that Ali London is a stable individual. That said, I do think that having the discussion, that he's having on Tucker Carlson, will do more good than it does harm. All right, guys, the holiday season is upon us, and I am excited. It's my favorite time of year, and I especially look forward to all the cooking and the baking. A few of my favorite holiday dishes are mac and cheese. It is my grandma's recipe, and it cannot be beat. I also love a classic roast. And this year, when it comes to the meat I'll be cooking with, you know that I will be using Good Ranchers. Good Ranchers truly has the best quality meat, and they deliver it right to your door, making holiday prep so easy and stress-free. You all see meat prices rising every time you go to the grocery store. To combat this and help you save as much as possible this holiday season, Good Ranchers is bringing you their best offer yet. When you order from goodranchers.com/Candace and use my code Candace, you'll get 2 Black Angus New York strip steaks free with your order. These are 2 12-ounce steakhouse quality cuts, a $70 value. So go to goodranchers.com/Candace and use code Candace at checkout. But hurry, because this offer is going to end on November 30th. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. Moving on, in case you did not see it, you should go watch the full thing. Obviously, we're not allowed to show you the entire monologue, but Dave Chappelle, absolutely wondrous on Saturday Night Live. I think earlier there were some rumors that some writers were boycotting having him on based on some past commentary that he did regarding the trans agenda. I don't know if that's true, but if they did boycott, it was in his favor, of course, because that means that they were allowed to actually be funny. He made fun of, really the monologue was making fun of Trump in a lighthearted way, also supporting Trump in a lighthearted way and talking about the voters of Ohio. He was making fun of Kanye and Kanye West, but also kind of taking, in a weird way, kind of supporting him and people that are in Hollywood and in the industry being called crazy. So here is Dave Chappelle in his own words.
Why you got all them documents at his house? What is this? This guy that's famous for not reading his press briefings, now all of a sudden he got 10,000 documents in his house and we'll catch him on his readings. I've been fired from jobs many times in my life, and I will be very honest with you. Sometimes I was fired, I stole things from the office. Staplers, computer mouses, all kinds of stuff. But you know what I never stole from work? Work.
Again, really funny, super lighthearted. And what I loved about it was that we kind of seem to be in this moment where everybody's walking on eggshells, and he acknowledges that at the end. He said it shouldn't be this difficult to talk about anything. And we are feeling this squeeze on comedy and this squeeze on humor. And just so you know how consistent I have been on defending comedians, Dave Chappelle notoriously took a shot at me because of my George Floyd video. And I thought that he was actually quite disgusting in his comments toward me. But my response publicly was not to condemn him, but rather to say that comedians should be protected. And that I was honored that he mentioned my name on stage back when that happened, because it is true. It was Jordan Peterson actually that once said a quote that the sign of a tyrant is somebody that kills the jester, right? If a king orders the jester to be killed, it's because he is a tyrant and they no longer allow jokes. And our society is increasingly saying that jokes are not okay. They came after him because of his trans comments. Even after this stand-up, there were some groups that came after him and said that he reinforced anti-Semitic tropes. Again, anybody saying anything bad after a stand-up comedian should be viewed as a tyrant. The purpose of his monologue was to bring people together. It's exactly what I felt that he accomplished. Like I said, he was both pro-Trump and anti-Trump. He was both pro-Kanye and anti-Kanye. And it allowed people to laugh at themselves. That is the purpose of comedians. They force us to stop taking ourselves so seriously and to realize that we have more common. And I just think that laughter is forever the best medicine. And so I just wanted to commend him on what I thought was a wonderful 15-minute stand-up. Go watch the entire thing if you have time today. Moving on. AOC is a victim of what I do not know, but I know she's always a victim. And usually she's about to be killed from who nobody knows. But she is always telling us that she's fearful for her life. And she had an interview with Chris Wallace on CNN. And she spoke about how the recent attack on Paul Pelosi has really heightened her concern that they're coming for her. I don't know who, we don't know who they are or why they're coming for her, but they are coming for her. And take a listen to AOC explain that to you.
I felt that my life has been in danger since the moment that I won my primary election in 2018. And it became especially intensified when I was first brought into Congress in 2019.
Does it mean as you walk down the street, as you go about your life, that this is something on your mind, that you are looking over your shoulder?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
It means when I wake up in the morning, I hesitate to walk my dog. It means when I come home, I have to ask my fiance to come out to where my car is to walk me just from my car to my front door.
I mean, bottom line is she's talking about how she feels. And today's episode is about feelings and not facts. So factually speaking, nothing has happened to AOC to make her fearful. She's not saying that she's gotten a threat. She's not saying that no person has ever approached her. And yet, despite there being an absence of facts, she thinks that she has a right to be super annoying to her dog and her fiance. I mean, poor dog. He's like, hey, can you take me for a walk? She's like, no, I'm scared. Why are you scared? I don't know. I just feel like I should be scared. And then you think of fiance. Could you imagine you're in the house and every single time your fiance gets out of the car, they call you and they're like, hey, could you come walk me 10 feet to the door? I'd be like, no, I don't want to do that every single day. Well, I'm scared. What are you scared for? Nobody knows. I don't know why I'm scared. I just feel that I should be scared in the same way that I felt that I almost died on January 6th when a bunch of grandmas stormed the Capitol building, and I wasn't even in the Capitol building, but I felt scared and I felt like I almost died, and Ted Cruz almost killed me. That's what she said once. She said that Ted Cruz almost killed her. Somehow nobody really understands. But the point is that AOC feels like a victim perpetually. She has not yet been able to explicate on that victimhood. And we will continue to report on her forever developing story of why she's suffering, and you need to realize it. So if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I'm always in the gym. It is honestly a form of therapy for me, and now I'm becoming an early morning gym person, so I think that means I might be getting old. All of that to say, taking care of my health is very important to me, but it's not always easy. It's hard to get up and go for a run every morning. It's hard to make sure that you're getting the proper nourishment, especially when you're running from work to school to practice to wherever else you need to be throughout the busy week. That is where Balance of Nature comes in as an easy first step toward building a healthier routine. Balance of Nature is a whole food produce supplement that makes it easier to get essential nutritional ingredients every single day. Their products are 100% whole food, and they use a cold vacuum process that preserves the natural phytonutrients in whole fruits and vegetables and encapsulates them for easy consumption. Balance of Nature sent a bunch of their products down to the studio for my team and I, and we all love them. When you're disciplined enough to take care of your health, you reap all kinds of benefits. More energy, less fatigue, better focus. Consuming the right balance of fruits and vegetables every day is an important first step. Go to balanceofnature.com and use promo code Candace for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Candace for 35% off your first preferred order. All right, that is all the stories that we're going to cover today. Next, we're going to jump into some comments. First comment, which was regarding the episode that I did last week, which I directed toward Black women who feel sometimes neglected by me. But in reality, I kind of shared with you that Black women have been the meanest to me out of everybody in the universe, in the Twitterverse, in the Instagramverse. Black women have kind of been the nastiest to me. This woman writes, her name is Regina. She says, Candace, thank you for sharing your story. I think more Black people need to have these conversations about degrading and disrespecting each other. When I was in school, I was talked about by people who said they were my friends. I was too Black because my skin is very dark. I was called tar baby, Blackie, spook, midnight. And if I wore black, I was said to be naked. It was terrible, and it was from Black people. It wasn't until I got into white spaces or around older Black people that they told me that my skin was beautiful. And I hated it because all I heard was that my skin was too Black. And I was ugly for being too Black. This is still going on today for others. I meet so many dark-skinned girls who ask, how did I gain confidence? Because they too hate their skin. Then I hear from lighter-skinned women that they have been bullied for being light or called stuck up. We have to do something better. I appreciate you calling this out. So true. Like I said, Black women are the pettiest. It's always about the way that we look. and it's super nasty, which is weird because then Black women become the most vocal supporters of causes like BLM, right? And they constantly are offering this commentary on racism when in fact the people that I have found to be the most racist in my life are Black people in the comments and the things that they say to me, slave terms all the time. And I just wonder who taught them to hate other Black people in that regard. And I think a lot of it has to do, as I mentioned in last week's episode, with culture of Black women feeling like they need to be the purveyors of culture in some way. So thanks for that comment. Another comment from Sunshine and Soul. She writes, I agree with you 100%. I went to a mostly white high school where there was only one Black table in the quad area that most Black people hung out at during lunch. My freshman year, they decided that I wasn't Black enough to hang out with them. Their reasoning, I took honors classes. I was a cheerleader. I wore Hollister and I talked white. My family came to California from rural Mississippi and overcame so much racism and poverty to give me a better life. I never understood why being educated, speaking proper English, and having different interests meant that I wasn't Black enough. Being Black to me has always meant being the best that I can be and not conforming to stereotypes. But just being myself has unfortunately meant more times than not being rejected by my own people, especially Black women. It is such a blessing to be able to see someone like me have such a huge and influential platform where you can show that being Black means more than agreeing with the consensus and the ridiculous stereotypes God knows who has set in place. You're like a breath of fresh air. Thanks for speaking up for the Oreos of the Black community. Yeah, the quote unquote Oreos, it's very true. I don't know why it is that, but when Black people tend to speak proper English, we get told that we're acting white, which in my opinion is a form of racism. It's saying that if you're smart, if you take honors classes, if you're doing well, then that means that you're not Black. And that's a very, very, very scary idea to implant into children's minds, that to be successful would mean that you're no longer allowed to have your skin tone. So people are choosing between, oh, do I want to be smart? Do I want to read books? Do I want to become successful? Or do I want to fit in and be dumber and speak improper English? And I don't, again, know who is behind that concept, but it does feel at times more sinister to me. Moving on, you guys know that we covered the woman last week who put her fallopian tubes into a necklace, a very young woman. I think she's like 22 or 23 years old. John Campbell comments and he writes, different take here. I thank God that she did this. It means that this narcissistic monster will never be able to murder an innocent baby. I hope she fully convinced as many people like her to do the same. If they regret it later on, oh well, actions have consequences. I understand the sentiment there. I completely understand thinking, okay, the problem is sort of taking care of itself. And these people that are this insane and this motivated to hate their femininity, that they're willing to remove their fallopian tubes, great, they won't be able to reproduce. But it makes me sad because I know that women at the tender age of 19, 20, 21, their brains are not fully developed. And so it makes me sad knowing that she's made such a permanent decision, that doctors have allowed this. Doctors who do have their brains fully developed, parents who have their brains fully developed, have allowed this to take place. And then rather than trying to help her, they've ruined her life. And it makes me sad that she will wake up and be 28 and suddenly realize, wait a second, a kid, having a child is what it's all about. Having a family is what it's all about. And she took it from herself when she was so young because she fell in love with a TikTok trend, really, or wanted to be super radical and against the Supreme Court because a bunch of leftists told her that she was supposed to be upset. So I think that as much as I understand your sentiment, I still feel really sad for all of these young women because they're young women and they're not older. Next question regarding the trans man that won the Miss America pageant. Jim Payne writes, imagine if you tried to enter your Persian cat into a dog show competition. They wouldn't let you do it. But imagine if they did, and then your cat won the dog show. That's essentially where we are at right now. We want to show how enlightened we are. We are actually just showing our own. That is so true. It's a ridiculous thing to even conceive. But of course, ridiculousness is all that we really are conceptualizing in this moment. And I could totally see that. My cat identifies as a dog, and then people being virtuous, like, oh, nobody knows if the cat is a dog or if the dog is a turtle. Only they know how they feel on the inside. Give this cat, this kitty cat, all the awards. And if you like cats like I do, the cat would be looking very much like these humans are so dumb, and it really upsets me that I need to be here for this. Final comment. This one is regarding Emily Ratajkowski giving her son a tea set and a doll because he loves trucks and she's got to make him more effeminate. I guess that's what she says in her podcast. D writes, that was torture to my ears listening to those women. Does Emily still recall her blurred lines video when she spews out all of this hypocritical BS? I think what she's referring to here is that obviously Emily Ratajkowski kind of hit the scene when she was butt naked and had Robin Thicke dancing around her to blurred lines. And she definitely was stepping into a stereotype of being a woman and being a woman that is lusted after. It's kind of her brand, to be honest. So I guess she allows herself her womanhood, but wants to deprive her son's love for trucks or something. I agree, she is a hypocrite, but I actually just think she's sad. And you're going to see her become more and more extreme for attention because she is now getting a divorce and she's going to need to somehow make people think that she's happy, and she's going to lean into this radicalized version of feminism, which of course is only going to make her more miserable. All right, guys, next portion of the show is going to be available exclusively on Daily Wire Plus. I'm going to be talking about Ivanka Trump cropping out Kimberly Guilfoyle in a photo from Tiffany Trump's wedding. So if you are not a member yet, go ahead and click the link in the description to subscribe right now.